and MLS, and will soon add others, including the NFL. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Wendy's breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose your perfect duo from your fave 4, like a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in the combo. Single item at regular price.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers are on the road tonight to begin the second half of the season. The Lakers are at Golden State. They won't have LeBron tonight. He's going to miss the game because of his sore left ankle. Keep your eyes on this situation. LeBron's ankle injury could become a problem for the Lakers. He had a week off for the All-Star break, and he's still not healthy. At the moment, the Lakers are 2 games out from qualifying for the playoffs. Tip-off tonight is 7 on TNT. The Clippers are at Oklahoma City, 5 p.m. tip-off. They start the second half with the third best record in the Western Conference. They're only 2 games behind number 1 Minnesota. The Clippers are in the top 5 in 4 major categories. Kawhi Leonard is 3rd in the NBA in three-point shooting and 4th in steals. Paul George is 5th in steals, and James Harden is 5th in assists. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. 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 If we care enough.
1, 2, 3, go! Ha ha! Let's keep it going. I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the good. Yes, I will. Yeah. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back in style again.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live show at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, we will speak with 2 of the women who now make up the all-female city council in St. Paul, Minnesota, a rarity among large U.S. cities where the council is all women. Council members Anika Bowie and Shaniqua Johnson join us today in hour 2. Look forward to that. In our third hour, young, black, and done with Joe Biden. The issues for some black men that could decide the election. All I can tell you is to strap yourselves in for hour 3 today. Don't say I didn't warn you. Young, black, and done with Biden. That's in hour 3. But in this first hour today, let's talk politics with 2 of our regular contributors on the B side of this hour. We'll be joined by George Mason University professor and founding director of the university's Race, Politics, and Policy Center, Dr. Michael Fontroy. We commenced today's show in dialogue with nationally syndicated columnist Ruben Navarrete Jr., who is also a host of the Ruben in the Center podcast. Ruben, how are you, sir?
My brother, good to be with you again. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on. We got less than 30 minutes. Let me jump in and cover as much ground as we can cover. And there are a few things I want to take your temperature on today. Let me start with this. I don't know how you feel about this. I can't wait to hear it. I can imagine knowing you for 30 plus years. But it appears that the Democrats and Biden are twisting like a pretzel, or getting twisted like a pretzel on this immigration issue. It appears that Biden has gone basically full Trump on the border. That's my read. What say you?
You know, you and I have talked about this issue before from different points of view. It's a bit like talking about the crime issue and saying all of a sudden that Biden was getting tough on crime. Well, you know, you'd have to look at the backstory, which is that Joe Biden has always been tough on crime. He wrote the crime bill in 1994. And so that led to mass incarceration of African Americans and Latinos. So the same thing on immigration. It is true that right now the headline is that Joe Biden is adopting a lot of the Trump policies. This was in the Washington Post. We also know, Tavis, that in the upcoming State of the Union address, Joe Biden is going to unveil a plan to crack down on asylum and people coming here looking to be refugees. He's going to crack down on that. He's going to announce it at the State of the Union address. And he's going to get a lot of heat, but he's also trying to cut off Trump at the pass and say to Trump, hey, you don't own this issue. I can be just as tough as you. But what we got to understand, and I think this is where the NPRs and the ABCs and the Washington Post of the world miss it, is they haven't been looking at Joe Biden going back 15 years. The way I mentioned on crime, Joe Biden has always been tough on crime, and he's always been tough on immigration.
What's your view of the asylum issue? I was just reading about that earlier today, that he is, to your point, going to come out pretty boldly, trying to cut Trump off at the pass on immigration and make this pronouncement about coming here illegally and seeking asylum. I don't know that most Americans, Democrat or Republican, would disagree with the president on that particular issue, even if he sounds more like Trump every day. I don't think, with all due respect to you, he's going to get much pushback on that notion. Your thoughts, honestly?
Yeah, so it's against international law and U.S. law to deny people a chance to come and plead their case for asylum. The asylum system has always been rigged to the point where about 80% of applications are turned down. But where we end up in trouble is when President Obama in 2014 and then Donald Trump in about 2018, and then now Joe Biden, when these 3 presidents have said basically you don't even get a chance to come and plead your case. If you're coming from Haiti, you ought to have a right to come in and plead your case for asylum. But if we stop you at the border and turn you around and say, just by looking at you, you know, Mr. Haitian, I don't think you have a legitimate claim to asylum. Well, and you're not a lawyer or a judge, but you're a Border Patrol agent making that determination. That's terrible. That's not who we are as a country. It's against the law. It's against international law. And there always should at least give the person a hearing. And we've had now 3 presidents, Obama, Trump, and Biden, who said, no, it's a lot easier just to turn people back around at the border.
Yep, you're right about that, and I love the truth you speak on that particular issue. You and I don't agree on everything, and that's okay. But on this issue, you are speaking truth to power, and frankly, to the powerless, because Obama did it, to your point, Trump did it, and Biden has done it, and it is against the law. And I was really, really troubled when Obama did it, being the first black president, to tell these Haitians that you cannot even come and apply for asylum. We see every day what's going on in this island nation. I mean, I just saw the story. We saw the story a couple of days ago that the wife of the late president who was assassinated in Haiti has now been arrested herself for being part of the cabal, if you will, that assassinated her husband. Now, who knows what truth is and how this is going to turn out. But the story is that she wanted to crave power for herself. and that she, prosecutors allege, was involved in this plot to overthrow and assassinate her husband, even as she was shot in the melee when they came into her house, the house that she and her husband shared, and killed him, the former president. But that's a strange story when the former first lady, is now under scrutiny for a role that she might have played in the assassination of her husband. That's just one of the crazy stories. I love the Haitian people. I've been to Haiti many times. But you cannot tell me, given all this going on in Haiti, that if you make it to Miami, that you shouldn't at least get a chance to make your case for political asylum. And that's exactly what Rubin is saying, that Joe Biden is about to deny people in his upcoming State of the Union address. The same thing that Trump denied people, same thing Obama denied people. I think it's flat out wrong. I digress for now. A great deal more to talk about. Just getting started in this first hour of Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Hey Californians, are you ready to make your home ownership dreams come true? The California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program might be for you. First-generation homebuyers can get down payment and closing cost assistance along with a first mortgage to help you unlock the door of your new home. Applications open in April, so talk to an approved lender to see if you're eligible. Find out more at calhfa.ca.gov/dream or call 877-922-5432. A message from the California Housing Finance Agency.
Febreze. So my home is also my office, and before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
The flip side, Ruben Navarrete Jr. of Joe Biden doing what many would regard, some would regard as the wrong thing on those coming to this country seeking asylum and being denied at least an opportunity to make their case. Doesn't mean you get allowed in. But it is the American way, if I can use that phrase. And I'm not sure what that means anymore these days, the American way. But it has been the American way to at least allow you to make your case. And then a decision is made, says Joe Biden, with regard to even making your case. That's the message we're going to hear in his State of the Union address. And I suspect there'll be a lot of applause on that, even as it runs counterintuitive to everything that we say that we are and we believe as Americans. It's the words etched in the Statue of Liberty, right? Bring me your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe, yearning to be free. That's what we say. That's what's etched on the Statue of Liberty. Somebody's going to scratch that out if it hadn't already been scratched out. If we keep down this path, that doesn't mean anything. It sounds, it's as the Bible said, it's sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. It's etched on that statue, but we don't really believe that. We're not really practicing that anymore. I digress on that for now. But the flip side of Joe Biden swinging wide on that, Ruben, is that he has, to his credit, done a masterful job, I think, of chipping away to the extent he can, given that Supreme Court decision that didn't allow him to go as far as he wanted on student loan debt. He has been chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at this student loan debt, and the numbers are pretty impressive of the student loan debt that he has now given relief to fellow citizens all across this country. You ain't got to pay it. That's a big deal. The question is, every time I see this story, and there was a big story yesterday about this, every time I see this story, I wonder whether or not that will make a difference. It sort of reminds me of Donald Trump putting his signature, signing those checks that everybody got during the pandemic. Now, everybody loved those checks. As a matter of fact, the checks were so nice, it spoiled a lot of people. Now these Negroes don't want to go to work. I mean, they were getting more in the pandemic checks than they were getting for going to work, so it's made us sort of lazy. And as you recall, that led to what they refer to as the Great Resignation. But Donald Trump, shrewdly put his name on those checks, and people were getting checks signed by Donald Trump. So there are two questions here. Will people remember at election time that they got that good money from Donald Trump during the pandemic, and will they remember that Joe Biden relieved their student loan debt?
Yeah, I think Democrats are hoping that they'll remember that Biden alleviate the student loan debt. But I agree with you. I applaud him for that. That was the right thing to do. It was too late.
Hey, it was too late for you and me, but I ain't mad at him.
Yeah, no, it was. I think it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do, and it's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money per student. It's $10,000 to $20,000 in some cases, but it's something, and good for him. The bad news to that, the other side of that coin, is that once you show, Tavis, that you can use executive power, and basically what Biden has said is, to heck with the governors who are suing me over this, the Republican governors.
Mm-hmm.
To heck with what the courts have said. I'm going to use my executive power to do it anyway. Well, then black and brown folks might be asking, okay, well, since you have found your way to executive power on this issue, why can't you use executive power on immigration or on voting rights or on criminal justice reform? Anything out there that black folks and brown folks feel that Joe Biden made promises they didn't deliver? Well, in those cases, typically, as you know, Tavis, he blames the Congress.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'd love to have passed voting rights legislation or helped with voting rights, but the Congress wouldn't cooperate. It's the Republicans' fault. So once you show us that you can do this with an issue that you care about and it's popular, it comes back to bite you a little bit, because then people begin to ask, well, why aren't you able to do it with these other issues that you promised to do something with?
Yep. You said Congress. It really is the Senate, specifically when it comes to voting rights and criminal justice reform, as you well know.
Correct.
And the issue that he's hid behind, legitimately or illegitimately, the issue that Biden is hid behind is the filibuster rule in the Senate. And there have been occasions where Biden and others have agreed to fight that filibuster rule for the sake of advancing certain pieces of legislation. They will not do it. Democrats have not done it, specifically on criminal justice reform. They've not done it for voting rights reform. And there are a lot of folk, and we're going to talk about this, as I said, in our third hour with these black men. I got a number of them who have been featured. You probably saw the article. It's in your paper. You are syndicated by the Washington Post. Washington Post had a huge story talking to all these black men and trying to get inside their heads and hearts about why they are done with Biden. We'll talk about that with some of those men today in our third hour and hear what they have to say and make our own assessments. I look forward to that hour. That said, this is on the list of issues that troubles many black men, that on certain things that Biden promised, he did not deliver. Criminal justice reform being one of them. Voting rights reform being another. Again, to your point, he blames the Senate, the do-nothing Senate oftentimes, for standing in the way of this, particularly hiding behind the filibuster rule. That's a long way of asking what you think he ought to do on the filibuster rule when it comes specifically to voting rights and criminal justice reform.
Oh, okay. So here's how I would attack the question.
Okay.
I'm not the person to answer that question. The person to answer that question is Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't me who spent over 30 years in the Senate. I mean, if anything, Joe Biden knows anything, he should know how to work the Senate levers. Given the fact that he came from the Senate, he spent over 30 years in the Senate, he's the expert on how the Senate works. If anybody could do away with the filibuster or find a way to do that, it would be Joe Biden, not me.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I think that also speaks not so well. That I thought we were getting at least somebody who was an expert on how the Senate worked. But I don't know, Tavis, if ultimately it's kind of easy for people in the media to hang our hat on the filibuster. I could imagine a scenario where you have an all-Democratic Senate and an all-Democratic House, and Democrats control the White House, as was the case not too long ago, and you still don't get these reforms. You still don't get, and not just because you don't have the 60, but because you have some Democrats who waver. So I think there's a problem within the Democratic Party in terms of adopting some of these issues. They see a cost involved in being the champion for criminal justice reform or voting rights or immigration or whatever. They say one thing when they're campaigning, but when they actually have the seat and they get a chance to vote, they sometimes leave you hanging.
Yeah. Let me circle back one more time right quickly. I got a few other things I want to cover when I move forward here with you. But let me circle back right quickly to immigration reform. To your point about Joe Biden understanding how the Senate works, working those levers, this conversation we just had about the filibuster. Let me just ask you point blank, what do you think primarily stands in the way of meaningful immigration reform? I know it's not just one thing, but if you were going to put your finger on the primary thing that has stood in the way, stands in the way now of meaningful immigration reform in this country, what are you pointing to?
It's a great question. It's one I've thought about a lot in the last 2 months or so, particularly how we got here. I think the reason it is such an unsolvable crisis and an issue is because of the level of dishonesty involved. You have Republicans lying to their own voters, Democrats lying to their own voters. There's an incredible amount of hypocrisy and dishonesty involved in having two signs on the U.S.-Mexico border, keep out and help wanted. We need immigrant workers, and we have, like you said, the Great Resignation and others, and we're looking for work, and we see help wanted signs everywhere. We're also keeping out immigrants. I'm not of the belief that these Haitians who are trying to come here are going to get on welfare. I'm of the opinion that Haitians are coming here to work. And if you're able to come across the ocean and make your way to the shores of Miami, you're precisely the kind of person I want in this country. And I'll make you a trade. I'll gather up a bunch of entitled Americans who don't even want to work at Starbucks, a bunch of lazy, kids, teenagers, and we'll ship them back to Haiti or Mexico or wherever. And we'll make out a trade, and we'll come out good in the long run. Okay? Because we don't have an immigrant problem in this country, brother. We have an American problem in this country.
Yeah. It is.
We don't have a problem with immigrants. It's not the Haitians who are ruining America. It's Americans who are ruining America.
It is a funny thought. I never thought about that way. We should do a trade, right? We'll send you our lazy teenagers, our entitled teenagers. We'll send you them, and you send us these immigrants who really want to work, and we might come out better.
We'll put Tavis and Ruben in charge of picking people. We'll pick people. I'll point them out. In my community. I'll point them out, brother. You're the first one to go.
Yeah, you could have this Negro and this one and this one and this one, and I'll take those 5 Mexicans.
I got Mexicans here. Go on your back. Mexican American, get on the bus. You're leaving.
That is funny to me. It obviously it's we're being there's some hilarity there, but it does make the point that these people are wanting to come here for work, not to get on welfare. And the bottom line is we've got to figure out some meaningful immigration reform in this country, one way or the other. And I digress on that for now. Let me cover a few other things right quick before I lose you in 5 minutes here. The South Carolina primary is this Saturday. Joe Biden, of course, has already won South Carolina primary for all intents and purposes. He's moving on. But Nikki Haley is still in this race. And I'm not so sure that I care on the one hand, but I also am trying to figure out why I think she's still in. Why is she not folding up her tent?
So our mutual friend, Michelle Martin, who I love and I used to work with at NPR, she's a co-host of Morning Edition. I was listening to her this morning interview somebody on this very topic. And the question was sort of, why is Nikki Haley still in?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the wrong question for the media to answer. We should not be in a hurry to try to get Nikki Haley off the stage. The sooner we get Nikki Haley off the stage, the sooner we end up with a rematch that 70% of the country doesn't want, which is Biden versus Trump. If she's causing Trump any kind of anger or angst, I'm all for it. The reason she won't leave, Tavis, is because she still has a lot of money, and there's more money coming into Nikki Haley every day. There are a lot of wealthy people in the Republican Party who are giving money to Nikki Haley. She's able to get together mega donors in a room, and they so loathe Trump that they're going to continue to fund her. So she's prepared to stay in because she has no reason to leave because she still has money. And I think it's good. Every day that she comes on and she bangs on Trump and she hit him today on Russia, then go for it. That's exactly what we should have in a primary. I hope she goes nowhere. I hope she stays just right there. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry to get to Biden versus Trump part 2. I think you got to be crazy if you're in a hurry to get there.
Well, I'm not sure what staying there means. I mean, it's easier said than done. I mean, you okay, so you stay there. But staying there without proving that you have any support anywhere. I mean, the money's coming in because there's obviously always going to be anti-Trump money. But at the end of the day, if you're not performing, I mean, you're not really staying there. You're just, I guess you're just hanging out. But there's nothing that suggests that you have any reason to stay there.
She can't beat Trump because Trump's a former president with 100% name ID. He was already going to be the nominee, de facto nominee. You see what he did to the whole field of Scott and Christie and DeSantis. The very fact that she's still standing speaks well of her. But I think the value is in a public sense when she makes a statement like critical of Trump on Russia or on other policies. I think that's helpful to me in the media. Certainly, I think we ought to have some criticism of Trump. We ought not get the impression that everybody in the Republican Party is a Trumper and ready for Trump. So I get it. We're programmed as political journalists to think about, well, there's no path. Yeah. There's no path. You know what Grandma used to tell you, how the destination isn't always the issue. It's the journey that matters. Mm-hmm. Well, likewise here. I don't care if she's not going to get the nomination. I care that she takes it to Trump, raises issues that need to be raised, and really has, shown a lot of guts and courage to stand up to him.
Yep. Got 2 minutes left here, that's more than enough time to cover a topic that I've covered ad infinitum, ad nauseum. Frankly, tired of covering it. But at the end of the day, it ain't going nowhere. So I think it's Ezra Klein. I read yesterday. Ezra at the New York Times is probably the latest to do this. But this story of major personalities, major journalists, major politicos, really pressing Joe Biden to step aside. Now, you and I both know it ain't going to happen. At this point, he is not going to step aside. The only way that happens, I believe, is if he has a health crisis. Otherwise, he's not stepping aside at this point in the process. But it doesn't stop major voices now, like Ezra Klein, the New York Times, and others saying he needs to step aside immediately and let somebody else run this race. Your thought, not about his age per se, that issue ain't going nowhere, but the fact that even though we know he's not going to step down, that all of these major voices keep sounding off on this issue.
I really wish they had sounded off on this issue 18 months ago. I really wish that we'd seen these kinds of columns. You know, I wrote columns about this for a while, saying there should be an age limit, saying that Biden wasn't up for it. I was excited about the possibility of Gavin Newsom or somebody else jumping in. Nobody did. But here we are. And I think, Tavis, the one thing that triggered people's attention is the Super Bowl. So you had the Super Bowl audience was bigger than it's ever been, and it's always huge. It was like 120 to 130 million people watched that game. Huge. And to that end, they gave, as you know, it's traditionally the custom to give the sitting president, no matter who it is, a free softball interview after the Super Bowl. And everybody always takes it. Why would a politician not want to speak to an audience that big? But here, Joe Biden turned it down. When he turned it down, it sent this message that he and his handlers are afraid that he cannot be trusted in that kind of even free-flowing conversation with a softball interviewer. Well, if that's the case, how do we think he's going to do in a debate against Donald Trump or on the stump? And so I think there's a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety among Democrats that not only is he not up for it, but he's going to embarrass himself and hurt the party and help reelect Trump, and all that's going to happen. Yeah. And of all things, what sparked it was the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, the irony of it is, speaking of the Super Bowl, that when all is said and done and Taylor Swift gets back here from Australia, and she and Travis Kelce endorse Joe Biden for president, he'll win in a landslide. That's the joke of the day. That all it takes is a Taylor Swift endorsement, and you can beat Donald Trump. We shall see about that conspiracy. For now, we think Ruben Navarrete Jr.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Syndicated columnist and host of the Ruben in the Center podcast. Ruben, I'll talk to you soon. All the best to you, sir.
Okay, take care, brother. Bye-bye.
When we come forward, more politics with George Mason University professor, our friend and brother Michael Fontroy on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Biden administration is canceling $1.2 billion in student loan debt for more than 150,000 borrowers. Southern California can expect more wet weather over the next week. The National Weather Service is predicting another storm to hit between Sunday and Monday night. This one is not expected to be as significant as past storms. Former talk show host Wendy Williams is in a facility to treat cognitive issues. Family members tell people that the 59-year-old is doing great and in a wellness environment. The Wendy Williams Show ended its run in 2022. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
Is this the title? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers and Clippers are on the road tonight to begin the second half of the season. The Lakers are at Golden State. They won't have LeBron tonight. He's going to miss the game because of his sore left ankle. Keep your eyes on this situation. LeBron's ankle injury could become a problem for the Lakers. He had a week off for the All-Star break, and he's still not healthy. At the moment, the Lakers are 2 games out from qualifying for the playoffs. Tip-off tonight is 7 on TNT. The Clippers are at Oklahoma City, 5 p.m. tip-off. They start the second half with the third best record in the Western Conference. They're only 2 games behind number 1 Minnesota. The Clippers are in the top 5 in 4 major categories. Kawhi Leonard is 3rd in the NBA in three-point shooting and 4th in steals. Paul George is 5th in steals, and James Harden is 5th in assists. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Wendy's breakfast 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose your perfect duo from your fave 4, like a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in the combo. Single item at regular price.
Are you ready to ignite your potential? Special Needs Network presents the CORE Workforce Development Grant, an opportunity designed just for you. You've been there for everyone else. Now it's time to be there for yourself. Whether you're a college student or a working professional, the CORE program is here to empower you on your journey. Get paid with free specialized diversity training, mentorship, and stipend to fuel your passion, power, and purpose in the behavioral health sciences. It's time to focus on your dreams while making a difference in your community. Don't wait. Visit snnla.org/core program to apply today. Be the spark that ignites connections. Your future is waiting. Again, that's snnla.org/core program.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
More politics now with George Mason University professor and founding director of the university's Race, Politics, and Policy Center, Dr. Michael Fontroy. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, my dear brother. How are you?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing well and good to have you on. I want to cover a few things with you. Let me just ask a broad question since you teach this stuff every day. What kind of interactions are you having with young people these days about the state of our politics? I mean, here we are in this election season, and we'll cover a few pieces of information in the half hour that we have here. But I'm just curious. Take me inside your classroom. What are these young folks saying to you? What are y'all talking about?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting time to be a college student. So if you're 20 years old right now, right, you were in diapers perhaps when President Obama was elected. Mm-hmm. And you know a Black man as president, you know a Black woman as vice president, and you know Trump and you know Biden. That's lived experience for you, right? Mm-hmm. And so for many of them, their socialization on politics is very different than our generation, for example. Mm-hmm. So they have a particularly curious view of it all. You know, they share many of the same concerns about working class opportunities and those kinds of things. But they also are worried about the nature of our public discourse. They understand how coarsened things have become over the years. And so many of them feel certain ways about things but don't really want to talk about it in public because, you know, they don't want to get into fights over this kind of stuff. So, you know, there's some self-censorship going on, not just among students, but also among some faculty members because of the environment in which we now live. So it's a curious, convoluted, complicated time right now.
Yeah. The flip side of self-censorship, the issue that you raised a moment ago, is that we are told in story after story after story that young people on college campuses and beyond are not feeling Joe Biden on a number of issues, specifically and particularly the Israel-Hamas issue. Are you seeing evidence of that in your classroom or on your campus? Because if you read, again, every poll, study, and survey suggests that Biden's going to get his lunch eaten by young people who are not feeling him on this policy.
Well, I think the policy is definitely problematic in that regard. I'm on a campus with 40,000 students. My campus looks like the United Nations. Mm-hmm. There is every kind of student you can see, and you can sort of feel some of the tension in the air as students move through. So there's certainly some of that, and there's just as much concern about age, right? My students are concerned about not just Biden's age, but also Trump's age and McConnell's age and Nancy Pelosi's age and go up and down the line. And by the way, it's been like that for years. They are mortified that our leaders are as old as they are. So yes, there's some of that too. On specifically regarding Hamas and Gaza and Israel, I think part of the problem here is that young voters historically are inconsistent participants, and so we don't know if they were going to show up anyway in November. And to me, that's part of the calculus. Biden is trying to walk a tightrope here, and we'll see. I will tell you this, and I heard some of this during the commercial break. You're talking about the $1.2 billion for 153 student loan borrowers and that debt being forgiven. That brings the total of $138 billion to 3.9 million borrowers across the country. That's real money in people's pockets. And so as you weigh and balance all of the things that go into how people decide to vote, the economy ends up being a really big thing too. And so there will be some who are upset with Biden about what's going on in the Middle East. And then they're going to have to confront their own conscience on the alternative because Donald Trump, in my view, is far worse.
Yep. You'll appreciate this, given that you don't just teach at George Mason in the greater D.C. area, but you grew up in Washington, D.C. And for those who ask me from time to time about that last name Fauntroy, yes, he is the nephew of the great Walter Fauntroy, who for a long time was the delegate representing the nation's capital in Congress. That is his uncle, Walter Fauntroy. He is Michael Fauntroy. That said, you'll appreciate this. I was just talking to Ruben Navarrete Jr. about whether or not Joe Biden, to your point, is going to pick up at least 3.9 million votes from those borrowers who he helped relieve some of their student loan debt. I was trying to juxtapose what Biden picks up there with what Trump might pick up for signing those pandemic checks that everybody was so happy to receive. And I thought about Marion Barry. I found myself, as I didn't grow up in D.C. like you did, but I knew Marion Barry, interviewed him a number of times, hung out with him. I knew Marion Barry well. And I would always tell people when they couldn't understand how Marion Barry kept getting elected, particularly after the incident at the hotel that everybody knows, they kept asking, why do these Negroes in D.C. keep voting for Marion Barry? I said, there's a very simple reason for that. Because Marion Barry got everybody a summer job. You talk to anybody, any kid who grew up in D.C., they will tell you that when I was growing up, Marion Barry got me a summer job. And that paid dividends for him year after year after year. Am I speaking the truth?
It pays dividends right now, and Marion's been transitioned from this life for years. Tavis, one of my very first jobs was registering voters as a part of a grant that was in the Mayor's Youth Leadership, Mayor's Summer Jobs Program. My kids right now are preparing applications that are going in so that they can have jobs this summer through that program. The loyalty that kind of stuff brings about is immeasurable. And I think that for a lot of student loan borrowers, and more importantly, their parents who have been helping them repay some of that debt, they will remember this. Again, $138 billion to 3.9 million borrowers. And that doesn't mean the people who are now working on infrastructure projects around the country and all the other things that have come out of the Biden administration. Some of that stuff is going to resonate. Yes, he's got some problems that have to be worked out, but the economy, quite honestly, if we're looking at it fairly, is not one of them.
Yeah, 99 problems, but that ain't one of them. Let me set this up, and when we come forward, I'll get your take on it. And I'm actually really following you because you went there first. Again, we were just talking to Ruben about the fact that this age issue for Joe Biden and for Trump, but more for whatever reason, more for Biden. This age issue won't go away. Ezra Klein, as I mentioned a few moments ago, is the latest to write a major piece. This one, as I recall, in the New York Times, saying that Biden needs to step aside, and Ezra laid out his whole argument for how that ought to happen, et cetera, et cetera. So we know at this late stage in the process it ain't going to happen, but it doesn't stop people who have major platforms and voices, from David Axelrod to Ezra Klein and others, saying that Joe Biden needs to step aside. This age thing is not going to go away. Here you come now reminding me that it's not just Donald Trump. It's not just Joe Biden. It's Mitch McConnell. It's Nancy Pelosi. You can run the list. James Clyburn, Maxine Waters, respectfully. I mean, there's a long list that we could run of politicians who are well into their years. which raises a couple questions I want to get Michael Fontre's take on. He teaches this stuff every day, and he's the founder of the Race, Politics, and Policy Center on the campus of George Mason. How did our politicians get to be so old? And obviously people are living longer. That's one thing. And I'm thinking of Ronald Reagan now, who I was not a fan of, obviously, but Reagan had a great line, one of those great lines during of any presidential campaign, when he basically said to his opponent, if you don't hold my age against me, I won't hold your youth and inexperience against you. So there is wisdom and experience that comes along with age, and yet our politicians, not just politicians, our leaders are so advanced in their age. How did that happen, and what do we do about that? We'll talk about that part when we come forward with Michael Fontre on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
Okay, everyone gather around. I have some exciting...
Running her shoe factory, Kendra talks the talk and walks the walk.
We're switching to green energy.
She needs a biotech consultant to erase her carbon footprint.
All operations will net zero emissions.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley in conversation with George Mason University professor and founding director of the university's Race, Politics, and Policy Center, Dr. Michael Fontre. Michael, you went there. I'm following you. What do we make of, and there are a number of ways we could parse this if we had the time, but what do we make of the fact that here we are in 2024, and it's not just Trump and Biden that everybody wants to talk about all the time, but we have in Washington an old leadership class, and for those who don't want to be called old, let me be more kind and more gentle. We have a chronologically gifted leadership class in Washington. How do I read that in 2024?
Chronologically gifted, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You're being generous today. So I read it a couple different ways. None of these issues that we confront in public policy necessarily have simple solutions or explanations. Part of the issue is the voters. The voters keep voting for these people, right? And one of the stopgaps that some people go to is term limits. But the reality is that voters, we have I hate to put it this way, but I just got to say it.
Right.
I blame a lot of this on voters. Voters, we have a civically ignorant electorate that is full of people who have irrational expectations about what politicians can and can't do. And as a consequence, they continue to vote for the people they like, even though those people may not be doing anything, and always oppose those that they don't, even though the people they oppose may actually have some good ideas to put forth. And so they keep doing the same thing time and time and time again and expecting different results. So as part of it, the voters are responsible for a good piece of this. The other part of it is, personal ambition. Members get in office, they don't want to leave. And we can find state legislators, by the way, who've been in office 30, 40, 50 years. And federal judges, for example, who've been in their seats for 30, 40, and 50 years. So it's not just politicians. It's not just D.C.-based legislators and presidents. It's a national phenomenon. We're getting older. People want to keep working, and unless voters vote them out, they're going to stay in office.
Well, there are three other things I'd add to that. I hear your critique of voters, and I with you, believe that we have a dumbed-down demos. People are not as tapped in as they ought to be to make smart decisions about how to vote and who to vote for. And let's also be clear. These things are complicated. These ballot measures and referendums. I was just talking to some people last night at a gathering here in L.A., and they were thanking me because on my station here in L.A., my home station, KBLA, they've been following this particular program hosted by a colleague of mine, our morning host, Dominique, who is talking to all these candidates and going through all these ballot referendums. People really tap into that because they know that somebody's going to help them understand what these candidates are really all about and how to vote on these ballot measures. So this stuff is complicated, and people ain't got time to go through all that. But I would add to the list right quick that while we do have a dumbed-down demos, you and I agree on that, there's money in politics, so you can't outraise these incumbents. Number one. Number two, there is the effect, in fact, of incumbency. Number three, there's gerrymandering, which I think is one of the great threats to our democracy. So the voters may be dumbed down, but you can't compete with the money. You can't compete with the incumbency, with the influence of incumbency, and you sure can't do nothing about gerrymandering. So it ain't just the voters, Michael.
Well, no, I'm not suggesting it's only the voters.
Right.
I'm saying that's a big part of a larger gumbo, if you will, of issues that help to explain why we are where we are. You just mentioned redistricting. The Wisconsin Supreme Court issued some threats that ultimately led to districts in that state, in the state legislature, being redrawn, and Governor Evers just signed the new maps into law last week. And it's quite possible that the Wisconsin legislature will now more accurately reflect the voting preferences of the people in the state as a result of overturning that redistricting. And that is a key issue that I've been on for 30-plus years, because I just think, we have too many elected officials who get to pick their voters rather than the voters getting to pick their officials.
No, I love it. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Michael Fontroy, I want to get his take on our third hour topic today. We're going to be joined by some brothers who have been rather vocal about being young, black, and done with Biden. That's the theme in hour 3, young, black, and done with Biden. Before I get to hour 3, talking to these black men, we'll get this one black man, Michael Fontroy, to offer his take on that when we come forward.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
If you're looking for the most epic place on Earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes, in a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over. And if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So, no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer Duster. Love it or your money back.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Michael Fontroy, who is a professor at George Mason University and founder of their Race, Politics, and Policy Center. So this is what he does every single day, and we're honored whenever we can get him on this program to share his expertise with us. That said, in the 3 minutes I have left, you heard me say earlier, Michael, we're going to delve into this in hour 3, but I know that you read everything, and you certainly read your hometown paper, the Washington Post, and there was a huge story that I know you saw in the Washington Post about being young, black, and done with Biden. So I ain't got to cover this much more for you. We look forward to hour 3 today, but tell me your take on what you read in that story and what you make of this phenomenon that is being covered and talked about in a variety of spaces.
Let me deal with the second half of that, of your question. I really believe there is some narrative malpractice going on in our public discourse where some of the really good things that are happening aren't being discussed, and the things that people are really exercised about are getting over-discussed. Not saying that those things aren't important, but it's just difficult for me to understand what people were expecting with a 50-50 Senate and a GOP House, what they actually thought President Biden was going to be able to do. In my view, from my perspective, what he's been able to do, given the hand that he was dealt, has been outstanding. And so I just wonder, you know, I used the word earlier, irrational expectations. I'm just wondering, for some of these people who are done with Biden, and I know that there are a number of people who have dinged Biden on the crime bill from the 1990s, and I get all that, you know, but if you're going to ding him on that, then you got to be fair and judge his entire career. And I think if you do that, you're going to find more than enough things that make sense and have worked well or very well. And then finally, I would just say, remember, everybody has to remember, the next president of the United States is either going to be Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And if you're looking for 100% agreement with a candidate before you can vote for him, then and you're mad with Biden, then that of course means that you must think that Trump is the answer. And I just don't get that.
Yeah. Joe Biden has a great line. I'm not sure how well it's working at the moment, but it is a great line that you've heard him say more than once, Michael, when he utters that phrase, compare me to the alternative, not the almighty. Compare me to the alternative, not the almighty. It's a great line. You know me, I love how people turn a great phrase. And speaking of turning a phrase, I love the way you turn that phrase. I'm going to hold on to that one. I love that. Narrative malpractice. That's the best line I've heard so far today. Narrative malpractice. It happens in this industry, in my industry, all the time. I love that phrase, narrative malpractice. Anyway, for now, we thank Michael Fontroy. He'll be back here in the days ahead, in many days ahead between now and November, to share his insights with us. He is professor at George Mason University and the founding director, to be exact, of their Race, Politics, and Policy Center. Michael, good to have you on. All the best to you. Give your wife and those twins my best, and I'll talk to you soon, sir.
Likewise, good brother.
Good to have you on. When we come forward in our third hour, as I mentioned, we'll talk about being young, black, and done with Biden. But before we get to that, how about the all-female city council in St. Paul, Minnesota. We'll talk to two of those council members, two of those sisters, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
$0.2 billion in student loan debt for more than 150,000 borrowers.